Hello there everyone, it's Nina. Thanks for joining me today for a new video. Have you ever tried making your own embellishments using your stamps? I think this is a really fun technique and perfect for using to create fun accents for your holiday projects this year. Now for my projects, I'm creating gift card holders and I'll be using a variety of Tim Holtz products to do so, but the main focus of today's video is I want to show you how I made these adorable DIY embellishments using some of Tim's newest holiday stamps and Simon Says stamp shrink sheets. This technique is a lot of fun and super customizable. I'm going to start first with the Darling Christmas set, and I pulled out this sweet little Santa image. Because these are cling stamps, I'm removing the insert from my MISTI so that way I can just stamp it right down onto the surface of the MISTI tool. I'm going to use the Simon Says stamp shrink sheets for today's project, and I always like making sure to trim down the shrink sheets to generally the size of the image I'm going to be stamping with, because these can scratch very easily and I don't want any of those scratches to transfer onto any of the finished pieces, so I always like to cut them down. The best ink to use with these shrink sheets is StazOn ink, and for this particular image I'm going to stamp it with white ink, which was a little dry, so I'm going to refill it with the refill that comes with your StazOn white ink pad. The white ink is a little different from the rest of the StazOn formula, so it does require a refill and requires to be refilled quite frequently. So I'm going to fill that up, then use it to stamp, and you can see we have a much juicier ink pad now. And this will allow me to get a really nice bright white image on this shrink sheet material. I always like to make sure to give this a chance to dry for a few minutes, and while it's drying I'm going to clean off my stamp. Simon Says stamp cleaner is perfect for cleaning off StazOn ink. It gets all the ink off, and because it's a solvent ink, you really want to make sure you clean your stamp well to get all of that excess ink off of it. Now, if you had coordinating dies, you could die cut this image out, but of course this image does not have a coordinating die. There's no dies to coordinate with this stamp set, so I'm going to fussy cut around this image. You do not have to make this perfect. I literally just did a quick little outline around him. We're going to now heat set this. This is what allows the shrink sheets to shrink down to the very small size that they become later on. So I always like to put this on my Simon Says Stamp Positively Everything tool to help kind of corral it. I can cup the paw tool to help keep it in place, and you want to heat this through until the image flattens out. And then I always like to take a clear block and lay it on top for a minute or two just to help keep it flat while it cools. Once this is cool, I can take it off of the clear block, and we have the most darling little Santa that is a perfect embellishment to add to your holiday projects. Let's try it again. This time we're going to stamp in a colored ink. I'm using olive green StazOn ink. You can use any StazOn ink color. It works really, really well. I'm going to ink up 2 of these bottle brush trees. As you can see, we have 2 varying sizes, and these are fairly large stamps, but wait till you see how small they get. I'll stamp this down onto my shrink sheet material, and I'm going to, of course, as I said earlier, let this dry so that way the ink has a chance to dry before I accidentally smudge it. So once it has dried, I cut them down, and then we're going to heat set these. Especially with a larger image like this, you want to make sure you try to heat this as evenly as possible. So you can see I'm going back and forth from the top and the bottom, really trying to make sure that nothing is getting heated more than the other end. And once this starts to shrink down, it's a lot easier to add that heat. You may need to fiddle with things a little bit, especially when there's small dangly pieces like the trunk of this bottle brush tree. And don't be afraid to get in there with your fingers to manipulate the piece. It is a little warm to the touch, so you want to be careful. But then you just manipulate it and lay a clear block on top to get that to cool in the shape that you want it. I have both bottle brush trees here ready to go. Look how cute they are. And I love how tiny they become. Perfect for embellishments. Here's a border that I had from the Darling Christmas set. Nice long piece. This is going to be great on a window. I'm going to add that to one of my gift card holders. Again, I want to make sure that I heat this as evenly as possible, allowing it to get a really nice coverage of heat to get it to shrink down nicely. This one started to curl up quite a bit, and I had to peel it apart. You can see here, just give it a quick little tug and then lay it back down and get the heat right back on it. You don't want this to cool. You don't want it to have a chance to cool too quickly, because then it will harden and you won't be able to get it back to its original shape. So just play with it. Sometimes when things look really bad, they actually work out well. This one worked out perfectly. So let's move on to creating the gift card holders themselves. I die cut the collector's envelope from Tim Holtz's collector's set. This is a die collection from Tim Holtz that came out earlier this year. And I die cut those envelopes from some wallpaper. This is worn wallpaper from Ideology. It's part of the Christmas release. Such really pretty colors. I loved the plaid. Reminds me of the lumberjack plaid ink color that just came out. Good color, perfect to match with this envelope. I didn't use it for today's project, but it would have been a good color to use. I wanted to stamp a tree as a silhouette on this envelope, so I'm using Simon's Stamp Intense Black ink to do so. That's going to show up fairly well on this worn wallpaper, and I didn't want it to really be a focal point. I just wanted it to be an accent because those bottle brush trees that we created from the shrink sheets are going to be the main piece laying on top of this tree that we're stamping. So after I stamped the tree, I'm going to assemble my envelope. All of the envelopes are assembled the exact same way. I just put a line of double-sided adhesive on the outside flap on one of the flaps that are for the sides, and then the interior flap of the bottom. Then we'll remove that release paper from one of the exterior flaps and then the release paper from the interior, and just go ahead and lay those all together to form that envelope. It's quick and easy. You could make a ton of these in no time at all. So I'm going to walk you through how I finished up this plaid envelope, and the other ones I'll show you some still pictures at the end. I added the bottle brush trees with some hot glue onto this little label that I created from some of the new Distress Wood Green watercolor paper. I didn't add any ink to that paper. I really liked the wood grain just the way it was. I thought it matched really nicely with the colors of my envelope and the texture of these trees. I'll just pop this up onto my envelope with some foam tape. And that little ticket label, that was actually from the collector's collection as well. For sentiments, I'm using the Darling Christmas set, and I'm going to stamp the one for the bottle brush tree onto green, but I also did stamp one on red, which I used for one of my other gift card envelopes. Now for the red one, I used antique gold embossing powder from Simon's Stamp, and then the green one, I'll use white embossing powder. This gives me a nice contrast on both of these colors, and I'll fussy cut the greetings out so that way I can layer them onto my project. If you don't like to fussy cut, you could definitely cut these down into just simple rectangles. You don't need to do anything fancy. I just like the look of a fussy cut sentiment. So for the tree, I popped that sentiment up off of the label at a little bit of an angle. I liked that wonky look. And I added some embellishments from a Tim Holtz Ideology Christmas set with some hot glue. These fun little stars and the little 25-cent label, those were really cute. So I added reinforcers on with the collector's set, and I'm going to use some gold thread to tie these together. So I'll just loop that gold thread through the reinforcer that's on the flap, and then the rest of that will get wrapped around the reinforcer on the body of the envelope. As you can see, I've slipped a gift card inside of this. These are the perfect size for gift cards and so much fun. As you'll notice, I have a nice variety of 3 different envelopes here. This one has some beautiful poinsettias and some greenery that I added from a couple of Tim Holtz Christmas dies. You'll also notice that the fun Merry envelope has some of the new stencils from Tim Holtz's Stampers Anonymous Christmas release. So those fun little holly leaves and then the Christmas Elements stencil set to form the words, that created a really cool envelope that I can use to pair up with the adorable Santa that we created. On the envelope that showcases the colorized bow and some greenery, I used that tree border to frame up the little circle window that I have for this. That looks into the gift card, which is a little bit fun and different. This is the only one that had a window. The rest were solid envelopes. So I hope that today's video inspired you and showed you how you can use your stamps in a unique way to create embellishments. As you can see, I created a variety of different pieces that allowed me to get a really beautiful custom embellishment for each of these gift card holders. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope you were inspired and I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to come back and share more with you. Until next time, have a fabulous day.